Yakuza Kiwami. Good game. Another Yakuza game. Let's go. Yeah. This one's an interesting one because it's technically Yakuza 1, but redone as Kiwami. It's basically a named game. It's not just Yakuza 2, Yakuza 3. Okay, well, Yakuza 2 is also some sort of Kiwami thing, technically. And Kiwami means extreme, so, you know, it's just a rebooted, rebranded, refurbished, remodeled version of 1. And technically that does carry into 2 as well. It's weird, because if you don't know what Kiwami is, you're kind of thinking it's like, hey, Yakuza 1? And it's technically where it falls. It's weird. It's such a Japanese thing to do, like, you know, all this weird naming and categorizing, and it's cool though. It's kind of like a comparison of maybe you have like a bunch of basic weapons in a game, and there's like a pointy sword, pointy blue sword, but then you got something called regalia or you know, razor blade. It's kind of like that, where it's so cool and extreme and big and original and redone and remade, whatever, to the point where it's Kiwami, Yakuza Kiwami. That's kind of cool, because especially with all the titles they have, you know, 3, 4, 5, they actually named 6 as well. You know, movies do something similar where yeah, maybe they'll just name everything, like the sequels and stuff. There'll be some name added on to give it a little bit more of a pop or a flair. Yeah, something similar here, a similar concept. So, I don't know, it's kind of cool. It definitely stands out. You know, hey, it's not 0. It's not 6, which is like the latest one. It's 1 and 2 just revamped. So I don't know, just the name itself is cool. It just sounds cool too, Kiwami. I don't know what it is. Or, you know, once you don't know what it is, you're curious about it. You're like, hey, what does Kiwami mean? Why is that there? Why is it in the title? Because there's a lot of words like that are in a lot of Japanese media, and then you're like, what does that mean? What is it? This was one of the few times where I actually bothered to like look it up, and what is Kiwami? But once I found out it meant extreme, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. The game's extreme. It's cool. It's good. Feels good. Plays good. Looks good. I mean, yeah. What's weird about this series is if you start from the bottom up, you know, it's weird because they didn't give all the games this kind of treatment. So if you, the reason why Kiwami is the way it is in Kiwami 2 or Yakuza 2, whatever, it's done in a different engine, Dragon Engine. So that's why it's just better. Very smooth, very polished. But yeah, that's one thing to consider when playing this series is like, hey, do you want to start with like basically the best of what the games have to offer as a whole, or and then work your way up to the older stuff that got remastered, but they're not really, they weren't really pushed as much as this. And that's what franchises do. They favor the whole, like, their first movie, their first game, maybe their second one. I think they kind of fucked over the rest of their games, but like if they did this with all their games, I think that would have been pretty cool and would have made those older games much more playable and better quality of life, better UI. So those older games are rough. Yeah, or you can literally, like, if you wanted to just play 0, 6, Kiwami 2, or Yakuza 2, Kiwami, and skip 3, 4, and 5, that's not the worst idea. Or weirdly enough, let's say you have all of them at once. You're gonna start up the series. You know, knowing somehow that 3, 4, and 5 is a little older and a little more rough. Supposedly it gets better as 3, 4, then 5. It gets better as it goes up, but you know, or do you want to play the older, better games first and then the nice stuff, or the nice stuff and then save the worst stuff for last? Kind of weird options you have. Like, by the time you actually end up playing, you're gonna have to make up your mind somehow, so yeah, it's just not a very typical option kind of deal to have, because it's either like, with most games, they're all treated very well, they're all treated equally. Like, you know, if they're from a certain time era, you play them today. Like, if you play some old series and you play like 1, 2, 3, whatever, you're gonna see it get better as it goes, but they still are older games, but they're being played on modern technology. So it's really not that bad. And games, these are meant to last a long time and be bought and sold and redistributed, all these things, like, over and over and over, man. It's pieces of property. You know, once it's in your hands, it's yours. But on their end, that's what they do with a lot of games. Is like they touch up on stuff, they patch things. Could be years later. They keep things updated. Obviously, these games have to run on these newer platforms, and so they do a good job at maintenance, maintaining the game's quality, for it to be not only playable, but as best as it can look. Up until the point where they might do something similar to this, where they're kind of redoing it, you know? Because yeah, you only get this treatment with 1, 2, and technically 6 as well. So, I don't know, I think for those who are willing to give Yakuza a chance, in order to play these, you're like sitting there like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna tackle playing these games? Am I gonna... I don't know, which kind of sucks too, because it's like, well, you know what, that's what Japan does. But I think it's really limiting their audience, because now, whether they know about the game or not, they're kind of having to look at it like this whole confusing kind of thing. So at that point, it's just a test of, are you going to be able to deal with and tolerate the things that Yakuza does and still be able to enjoy it and play it regardless? Because there are people out there that, you know, are very maybe skeptical about Japanese games in general. They're out there. And are they willing to give something like this a chance, even though it's not anime, it's a real legitimate game. A lot of people can connect to it, no matter what kind of background or mental state of mind that they have or who they are. So that's kind of cool that you know, it's a game that might push you out of your way a little bit of yourself, or like You know, hey, if I'm super hardcore patriotic of the country that I live in, for example, is this a game that I'm interested in enough to have a part in and play? And I think it can really like break people out of their shells, or maybe not. Yeah, that's kind of the whole. Since this is the first game, technically, you know, I think it's funny when you put zero into the number zero into something, because it's like, dude, you're not even dealing with the first game, you're not dealing with the last, you're dealing with something way beyond its time. Usually zero, oh, originality, original, OG. That's kind of how I see, like, just it's blank, it's zen. It's very open and interpretive of what it can do. You know, people that use zero in whatever it is that they're doing, their projects, usually it's going to be this very, it's like an entity all of itself. So that's why zero is as good as it is. But I think Kiwami is also good in its own way, because it's hard to choose like a list of like, hey, what games are actually better than the other ones? Because Kiwami is like, it's supposed to be the game. And I wouldn't even say it's the strongest in the series, but it's definitely up there for sure. They found a way to scramble their franchise so much that if you like Yakuza the way that I do, for example, you're gonna look at all of them pretty fairly and equally, to the point where they're all good, that they all do the same, what they need to do. There's no point being too picky about it. Which is hard to determine whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Yeah, it's Kamurocho, it's really pretty. Like, if you're trying to get an accurate description of, because the thing with these games is they are Japanese tourism Tokyo simulators. So when you're playing something like Yakuza, you have to play it like this, because you're going to get the most accurate, clearest, high definition, graphically upgraded version of what this is and what it's doing. And whether you play the old arcadey stuff more, it still looks great. This city and everything that they're doing has always looked fantastic. It's the game. There's not much else outside of the city, so they kind of have to do that, right? There has to be like a quality standard. Yeah, this is really good too. This is a good entry point. They all are in their own ways, but especially if you're someone who's maybe like, hey, maybe Zero's starting a little bit too ahead. Zero's cool because it is its own thing, and you can play 1 through 6, plus or minus the spin-offs. You can go back to Zero if you really want to. You could play it before, it doesn't really matter, but Kiwami is kind of the ideal. It can be looked at as the ideal starting point. Cutscenes look fantastic.
兄貴すみません、本当こんな取り立てに出張ってもらうなんて。
気にするなって言ったろ、シンジ。
はい。
They're just really pretty. Like, if you're playing on a 1080p TV or monitor, it's gonna look pretty good. If you're playing 4K, there you go, even better. Because some of these games are kind of old, or they're oldish, and they're, like I said earlier, they're rebranded, redone. It's kind of weird in that way, but if you are someone that really likes graphics and detail and stuff, you know, this is a great game to get that. I don't think you'll see a lot of cities in general, the city games that look this good. You know, this is basically a Japanese Grand Theft Auto. That's what a lot of it is compared to. But even in like Grand Theft Auto 5, for example, like everything is really pretty and really, it feels real, and you know, third person just like here. But I don't think you get quite that like stunning Yakuza sharp textured Japanese quality that you get out of Grand Theft Auto compared to this. Like when you play GTA, it looks fantastic, it really does, but I think when you play this game, it just looks better. Funny enough, both games are kind of just about as old, really, but yeah, it's funny how like Grand Theft Auto is this big, you know, mainstream GTA, woo, when really there's games like this that look way better. Granted, it's a different city, it's a different culture, it's a different country, all these things, so there's that to, you know, keep in mind, but I mean, still, because everyone's got their style, you know. Hey, I only play city games, I only play open world games, I only play third person, blah blah blah. You know, if you are that kind of person who likes to play these kind of games, this is a great one to play. I still do want to play Sleeping Dogs, you know, it's Chinese Yakuza. I think that'd be pretty cool. I definitely like China about just as much as I do, well, I'm biased towards Japan, but you know, I think China's really cool too. It's probably the second coolest country. Yeah. And shit, I'd say like Egypt after, whatever. But yeah. Everything's here, the usual mini games, pool, bowling. There's batting. I never really liked the batting. There's all the restaurants. Fighting's, you know, fighting. Oh, what else is there? Yeah, just darts, drinking. Just the usual, right? There's even something in Kiwami specifically, and not all the games have it, but the pocket circuit racing is, you can spend a lot of hours in that. I actually went pretty hard with that. Fortunately, I played like 3 hours of pocket circuit, and I got, like, my power went out or something happened, and I lost like 3 hours of progress doing that. That hurt. I got the trophies for it, but yeah, like the end, the hardest races in the, you know, the game. So that was unfortunate, but whatever, right? Yeah, Yakuza's just fun. Like, you have a good time. You have the lights off, or you're streaming, whatever it may be. You know, you're in this really immersive world, and get to watch a nice movie on the side with the cutscenes, and play some games, kill some time. Because I think when you're playing a game, when you're sitting down for hours, when you're streaming, whatever it may be, you do kind of get these weird mood swings, like mood levels, like, hey, I want to do this, I feel the mood for that. Maybe I'm getting impatient, maybe I have energy, I'm tired, whatever. This is a game where you can play for so long and like kind of cater to your time with it as you go along, and I think that's pretty nice. But yeah, a lot of memories with this game, because it's like, you know what, whether I'm like literally alone or whatever it is, This game is just good company. It'll keep you entertained, and it's there for you. It's your friend. It's a good way to stay busy, and I don't know. It really is one of those games where you want to, after you're done playing or before or whatever, you're just like, you know what, dude? Who else out there likes Yakuza? I want to be their friend. What are the communities like? Where's all the pages? What all websites is there? Like, it really does make you want to kind of dig a little deeper, because it's such a, right off the bat, whoever likes this loves Japan and cares about it and all these things just as much as I do. More than likely, unless they're just like, hey, it's just a video game to me, whatever, fine. But either way, they still play it. They still, I don't know, it could be a great way to make friends. I don't know. I just pictured like being part of like some weird fan club, or I don't know, just one of those games that I never really thought I'd think of things like that before. And because a lot of games are just so random and whatever to me that I don't even consider stuff like that. But this is something that's like, anime's got its own kind of fan club. You're going to the conventions, you're buying all the merch, you're watching it all, you have collections, whatever. Something like that would be pretty fun to do with this game. There's not a lot of, because that's the thing, anime is like Japan's strong suit. So when you're thinking of stuff like this, it's like, hey, this could be a cool way to not only be interested in their history and culture as a whole, but if anything, just focusing on this game alone can be probably a pretty cool thing. Yeah. It is a game that does make you want to learn, like, okay, what's the real city of Kamurocho, Kabukicho, or whatever it is. Like I said earlier, what does Kiwami mean? Extreme. Like, it is a game that made me go out of my way to know more about it, and was just super interested and into it. And the voice actors, what does he look like? What does Kiryu look like? What does he sound like when he's talking? The guy can actually sing, and he's in a band. It's just cool finding out fun facts like that. What does Majima look like? It's interesting knowing that these really popular Japanese celebrities and actors play a part in a lot of these games, and you may never notice it. It could be wrestlers, it could be professional wrestlers, it could be just actors in general, and there's a lot of hidden surprises in the game that you may not really have ever noticed or thought of before. And that's cool, because for a game to even do that, it's pretty neat. Because you think most games are just kind of like, a bunch of filler. Oh, this game's out there, and it's just a weird alien, vampire, demon game. Cool. Whatever, like, at least you can kind of relate to this a little bit more, because it is more realistic. It's more plausible. It's real. So there's a way to not just treat it as some sort of fan fiction thing. It's all legitimate. It's all renamed in the game for licensing or whatever, right? Like, it's fictitious, or whatever you want to call it. But it's based on a real city in a real country. This is the thing that makes you want to go to Kabukicho. Is it Kabukicho? I'll just say, it's easier to say Kamurocho. Dude, it's mostly known for Kamurocho at this point. I can't imagine actually going there and being like, wow, I'm here. Or you'll see it I've seen this city in other animes. There's this one anime I saw that had this city in it, and I was like, hey, that's from Yakuza. I thought that was so cool. Like, you're so used to seeing this city in every single Yakuza game, and then you're like, oh shit, it's in something besides Yakuza. I thought that was so neat. It was really cool to see that. So those are just some like fun, hidden, weird facts, you know, things to think about. Like Grand Theft Auto does something similar where they're you know, all these hidden things that you really have to go out of your way to kind of find, and just really cool little spots and Easter eggs and references, and yeah, pretty neat. I mean, in Yakuza alone, they reference a lot of Sega stuff, which is cool. Sonic, whatever. Yeah, the gameplay is pretty good. Yeah, beat 'em up, fighting, very smooth, very fluid. Mini games, obviously. I mean, the mini games aren't like, when I think of gameplay, I think of combat and kind of that main thing you're probably doing throughout a lot of the game, which is the combat. But here, I really do look at the mini games just as much of a part of the gameplay as anything else. Because there's a lot of games that have mini games, but they're definitely not implemented into the game the same way as this game does. So that's kind of cool. Story-wise, it's really good. It's what you'd expect. I like the characters. You know, I love seeing this world start. I love seeing it from where it began and what it became. Cause I played this at the end of Kiryu's. I played my first Yakuza game was 6. So I played this when Kiryu was an old man, and you know, Uncle Kaz, old and gray and at his prime, a silver fox. So with games like this, it was really cool to see, like, it was really cool to see him grow and you know, in his youth and as a young man. Because not only is it just nice to see that, but when people see things like this, it makes them think of their life and their own life and how they grew up and where they came from and all these things and where they are at now, where they're going. And it's pretty neat, you know? It's just good to see, like, things pick up and work out for this character that you're rooting for, and everything that he does, everyone that he meets, everything that he says. You're really supportive of him in the way that you would support yourself or your friends or family, or really feel for the guy, and you watch him grow up just like you have and all these things. And that's one of the best things about Kiwami. This is why people focus so much on their first movies, their first games, is because there's nothing like it. There's nothing like the first time. There's nothing like that beginning of this whole journey of your own thing. And that's what this game can really do for you, is start up that quest, that adventure of all that is Yakuza. But yeah. Nani?